We are recording.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Creative Businessmen. Today, on this episode, we have actress Lacy Camp with us. She's a really good actress and a friend of mine. It's good to have you on, Lacy.
Thank you.
You want to just tell everyone a little about yourself and what you do, and we'll start from there?
Sure, yeah. So I got a degree in acting from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Got a BFA, and so I was pursuing more of like a theater world. And I went into children's theater, and I love children's theater. It's very rewarding, but not in dollar bills, y'all. So, so I think after a couple of years of touring with children's theaters, and I was in upstate New York, and I was in Alabama, but with the Birmingham Children's Theater, we were able to tour all of like the East Coast, as far north as home, North Carolina, where I still live. I grew up and still live. And then all the way down to Tampa. So I saw a lot of like the East Coast, and I realized like, man, North Carolina is pretty awesome. Like when you're a kid, you think, I gotta get out of here. Like I don't want to be that person that just never leaves and still going to all the football games. And you know, I didn't want to peak at high school. You know, I had a really good kind of run. I was homecoming queen. I did all, you know, so I was like, I'm supposed to be out of here. And it turns out I was like, I got to go home. And I'm glad I did. It was right before 9/11. And I think with everybody that was an adult during 9/11, it was kind of like a paradigm shift in your priorities, your thought process. And I never saw myself being a wife and a mom. Like I'm going to be an actor. I'm going big. Or I'm not going home, whatever. Yeah. And so I kind of associated that going home with failure. And my mom, she was a teacher. So she was still teaching. She was a third grade teacher. And she always was like, you're a teacher, you're a teacher. And when your mom tells you something, then you're like, no, I'm exactly whatever you said I'm going to be. I'm the opposite. So, so I just kind of equated that with like when you can't, you teach, which I don't buy into, but it was one of those things that I had heard. Because I really do have a good theory about teaching acting. But I went back home, and my former drama teacher from high school ran into me in town, and she was like, I'm so glad to see you. I've been praying for somebody to come and take my job, and you're the one. She had this great Louisiana accent. She's passed away, and I think about her all the time because I had no idea how much she would shape my future. And I was kind of dumb enough to think, well, I'm an actor. I'll act like a teacher. And that, anybody who has really been born to teach knows that is not the way to go into teaching. It's hard. It's very hard work, and it's not a whole lot more money than being a theater performer. So, but anyway, it's where I went, and I started teaching at my alma mater, and that was pretty cool to be back there with some of my former teachers, and I enjoyed it. I met Clark, my husband, right that first year of teaching, and we were married that summer. So,
oh wow,
really quick.
That's
yeah,
awesome. Get him, Clark.
Yeah,
locked it down.
Clark's in here, by the way.
Yeah.
Back over here.
The bragging there. Well, he was the basketball, assistant coach and head JV basketball coach. And I was the drama teacher, so we would run the pep rallies and everything. So it was kind of cool we felt like all the kids identified with us and felt like we were like the high school sweethearts of the group,
That's cool.
And then we had our own kids, and it was like all of a sudden, y'all are great, but we got to go home now. Like this is, it's a lot of work. Like teachers don't make enough money. If you're doing your job to completion, you're working 80 hours a week. Like it's more work than you should have to do to do it well. And a lot of people, have that personal drive, that commitment to the kid that's more than just meeting, the need that you're required to do. So if you have that, I want to follow through. I want to do all this. You're exhausted. And like I said, I didn't go to school to be a teacher, and I knew real quick, the teachers that were meant for this care about the left brain and the right brain and how to differentiate between for this learner and that. And I'm like, I just want y'all to be good people. Like, how you doing? What'd you do this weekend? Were you good to your mama? Like, I'm like, this is not the way teaching is supposed to be. So anyway, I loved teaching. And this was what I was saying, how I've got a theory on those who can't teach. I am so grateful for the time that I spent as an actor acting like a teacher, because every day I felt like I was doing improv. I was trying to act like I'm not exhausted or, whatever. And I'm pitching this assignment and trying to sell it and get these kids excited. And it was a lot of improv work. And I feel like that really helped me as I went further. I was still acting. I was teaching, but I was trying to act. So I needed an agent. And when I didn't have kids, it was very hard for me to get an agent. I was like a dime a dozen, brunette, 20-something, 5'2", white girl. Like, we're all trying to be actors around here, like every agency I submitted, this was like when like hard copies.
Oh, wow.
Like you send your headshots and, it gets expensive. And when you don't have a lot of money to invest, and that's one thing I do like to tell actors, like you have to approach acting like an investment in a business.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if you don't have a little nest egg, you're going to get you're going to get discouraged, and it's going to not go well. You have to have a little bit of money to put up front and feel good about it. Like, I'm worth this investment, Yeah. So I was trying.
Pay for good headshots.
Exactly.
Like
yeah. And so I was sending everything out, the packets everywhere, and I just would get, at this time, we don't need you. Like, and I didn't, you need to get more experience. I'm like, okay, how do you get more experience? We have to get an agent. Well, how do I get an agent? You need more experience. And I'm like, what?
Yes. It's frustrating at first.
Very frustrating. Yeah. So then, like 2 years after we got married, we had a baby. And I was like, ooh, I have an accessory. Like, this differentiates me from the other 20-something, white girls. So I was like, and she was beautiful. Ruthie, my oldest, she's 15 now. And she was a beautiful baby. And so I started submitting her. And she had like 18 agents on we don't need you to sign. You can work with anybody. Like, babies are just, basically like props, And she was getting jobs left and right. And then one day an audition came through that said, the mom needs to be an actor as well. And so I submitted my information and said, hey, I have a degree in acting. I don't have an agent because you actually said you didn't want to represent me a couple years ago, and I just kind of gave up on myself and quit taking showers. And and she was like, don't do that. Like, get it together, girl. And I did. I pulled it together and started doing all the things that I thought had passed me by. And took my pretty little baby with me, and we started working together and booking things as like actor. And my next daughter came along, and so it was like actor with 2 kids, 1 job. I was supposed to have 3 kids, so I asked my friend, could I borrow her son? And he looked enough like me that we booked the job, and they had no idea that we weren't all DNA related.
That's cool.
But that was when I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to juggle the acting and teaching at the same time, but knowing in my heart, like, I'm breaking my mom's heart because I really wasn't the kind of teacher she was.
Yeah. The good thing about teaching, though, is you can learn a lot from teaching. Like, if you're teaching what you're interested in, you can actually learn a lot about about your craft.
And that's how I got hired as a teacher, was because they were like, you know this craft. Mm-hmm. And I was very confident in being a teacher of the craft. I was not confident of getting everybody to sit down and shut up. And, that's the part that that's why people need to go into education and learn classroom discipline and how to manage like different personalities. And that's what was overwhelming for me. And I was like, I can't act like a teacher anymore. Like, this is getting over my head. And I was starting to pick up a little bit more opportunities to go to Atlanta and work on different shows. And so I finally quit teaching, and my husband came home one day, and I was sitting in the bed like middle of the day with the covers like up to my nose, and he was like, "What happened? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think you're gonna be mad at me." And he's like, "Well, what? As long as you didn't quit your job." And then I like put the covers over my head. I was like, he was like, "You quit your job? Like, I don't think we were ready for that. I don't know if we can afford that yet." And he's in education too, and he was a classroom teacher at the time, and now he's more of like a testing coordinator. But it wasn't a smart financial move, but I had been at the Actors Lab and had been motivated to make choices that were like, take a leap of faith. Once you put yourself in the position where failure's not an option,
right,
you can only succeed, you'll surprise yourself. And I feel like my time at the Actors Lab was like something that complemented what my parents like instilled in me, like a strong faith base, but that was not enough to be alone. So when you take the motivation that came from our teaching, it's like a contradiction of what you grow up hearing. Like, as a woman, we play small and we serve others and we know your role and you're a good girl and you listen and you know, and then you go somewhere where they say like, screw that. You need to go after what you want. You need to be like, visualize where you want to be, go for it, dream big, don't apologize for yourself. Stop saying, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
And it unlocked something in me that with the two things allowed me to get to the point where I quit my job and I'm getting ready to be badass. Like, I'm doing it, you know?
That's great. I mean, you got to break down the conditioning of society.
Yeah. Right.
'Cause we're all conditioned in society as we grow up. And, when you're kids, you don't have any of that. You have no inhibitions and stuff. But as you get older, it gets harder, especially being an actor, because you have to be vulnerable, and you've been taught your whole life to not be vulnerable.
Right.
And I know for me, getting started later in life, I was 33 when I started at the Actors Lab, and from being self-employed in business for years, and just being in a state of a mental state where I felt like it was weak to be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Like you'll get ran over by people, and
right.
So that was, but actually it was very freeing to learn how to be vulnerable again.
Right.
And also it was really nice to tap back into that creative side of me.
Yeah.
That I felt like I'd kind of pushed away for a while.
But you can't ignore what you learned in your past. It's the, like you have to find the balance. Yeah. And the layers of it all is kind of what then creates the person that you're supposed to be, and like how you can be your best version in this career or whatever your career is. It's not just acting, it's any of them.
And also you said you quit your job, and that's a tough move for a lot of people, but it's also a really good move because we talk about the golden handcuffs.
Oh yeah.
Where people they get into a career or to a job that they don't necessarily love or like. Maybe they hate it, but it pays their bills and it meets that need, and they just settle. And to me, that's one of the scariest thoughts in life, is just settling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like you're settling, you should probably figure out how to do something else.
Right.
And and I tell people when they say they lost their job or something, I was like, "Well, did you like your job?" "Well, no, I didn't like my job. I hated it." "Well, great. I'm glad you lost it."
Yeah.
Because when you go through those, when you experience those big changes, that creates big opportunities if you're looking for those.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that gives you an opportunity to figure out more about yourself and which direction you want to go in life and what you want to do. And it's awesome that you did that, because that'll inspire a lot of other people, or can inspire a lot of other people to do the same thing. Because, I mean, would you be happy now if you were still teaching? You'd probably be miserable.
Well, I think I would have gotten fired, because eventually they're like, "Come on, no more pizza parties." Like,
And
I mean, now with DoorDash,
too.
can you imagine? It would have been a mess. I mean, I wouldn't look at what movies were rated, and I would just play something like, "Oh, let's talk about this," and then somebody like emails, and it's like, "That's rated R." I'm like, "It is? I didn't think." Oh, okay. I just wasn't trained for that. And then once you become like, when I became a mother, I feel like I needed to be a teacher for those like 10 years or whatever, because it did make me a better mother. Like I learned how to kind of do parenthood, at least my version of it, which there's a lot of friends out there that would be giggling because I'm a little laid back about some things, I want to be like a stickler and do all that, but it's not in my,
I'm a pretty laid back parent too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just not in my DNA, and I wish it's the same way as I was as a teacher. It was like, I want to have a good time. I want to enjoy that. And then it's like, oh, but yeah, we do have to brush our teeth. And, that's right. That's important. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
your husband probably is a yin and yang relationship with you. He's probably the enforcer. If he wasn't a coach and stuff, I'm sure he's got that in him.
Well, he's got just being a dude in his corner like that. But really, when we got married, all of his friends were like, "Oh my gosh, are you in for being with him the rest of your life?" And then all my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, are you in for being with her the rest?" And we were like, "Wait a minute. I think we're the male-female versions of each other." So we looked at each other like, "Do you know how to make dinner?" Because I don't. Like,
that's hilarious.
We were both the babies of our family. Like, who's gonna take care of us? Like, who's getting up in the middle of the night when the baby's crying? Like, not me. You're it. Like, it's kind of. And we were old. Like, we were old enough to not act like children, but we just kind of grew up together when we had to, I guess. It's worked out fine.
Nobody knows. There's no recipe.
Right.
It's when you're a kid, you believe that when you grow up you'll have all the answers, and then when you grow up you realize you don't have any answers. You have more questions.
Yeah, and you realize that your parents aren't as smart as you thought they were. Like
they're just bigger versions.
They're just trying to figure it out themselves too.
That's it.
So when you're married and you're like, no, this is the way my family did it. Well, this is the way my family did it. I want a real tree. We're gonna have a fake tree. And then you're like, wait a minute. Like maybe the way that I grew up, and it's not the end all be all. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
The weird thing about today, though, is the kids today don't look to their parents for these questions. They look to Google.
That's right.
They don't like we relied on our parents for all these answers, and now I still find myself answering questions, and it's just stuff I was told as a kid. I'm like, wait a minute, that may be wrong. Let me look that up and see if that's.
Well, I'm gonna toot my own horn. My oldest son Daniel turns 10 in a few days, and he told me very recently, he's like, "Dad, I check what you say a lot on Google and on YouTube," and he goes, "You're usually right." And I was like,
sweet.
I said, "Where do you think Google gets all those answers?"
There you go.
That's funny.
Oh, that's
so
great.
I got fact checked by my 9-year-old, soon to be 10-year-old, and he says, "Dad, you must be pretty smart." I was like, "At least somebody thinks so, honey."
Yeah, well, he's at that age where you hung the moon.
Yeah, very true.
Let's
very
talk
true.
in 3 years.
Yeah.
I got 2 teenagers in the house right now, and I'm like, you used to love me. Like, no one wants me to lay down with them at night. Like, I haven't been asked to scratch anybody's back. You're like, I miss them.
Time for another baby.
No. No. So now that you say that reminds me, like when you do have a kid, acting is hard to keep going. I would not have been able to do it without good grandparents. So we were very fortunate to have Clark's mom and my mom and dad close by and able to help out so that we were able to kind of cover all the bases and Clark wasn't overwhelmed,
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, like, I've always had this vision, this strong feeling that I see myself in Hollywood and doing those things, like working alongside Oscar award winners and accepting an award myself. Like, I mean, I believe it is strong in my belief system and has been since I've had my first memories.
Yeah, and you're a good actress too, a great actress. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean it. You are. You're really
Yeah.
talented.
Thank you. But life is funny. So I used to tell myself I'm never going to go to New York and LA when everybody they're leaving school or whatever. They're either going to grad school or New York or LA. And become the actor that they got their degree about,
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I don't feel like I should go until someone pays my ticket. You
Right,
know, like
yeah.
I had visited New York, but not to like move and pursue it. So I was like, I'm just going to wait. And sure enough, my first time to LA, my ticket was paid for so that I could be Darby's mom. My daughter is the one who's starring in a role beside Oscar Award winners. And I'm like, well, I'll be dadgum. Like, I knew I felt like I belonged out there rubbing elbows with these people. And here I am, and it's got nothing to do with me.
Well, she is you.
She is. Yeah. And I do take ownership in that. Like, I'm very proud of what I've been able to help her do as an actor. But it's funny because she doesn't think that she's had any lessons, you know, because it was just me hanging out with my kid. And then I'd say, oh, let's set up this camera. And I want you to say this after I say that, let's do it. And then it's like us just playing make-believe. And next thing she knows, she's submitted for a commercial or an audition for a TV show, whatever. And she didn't really realize what she was doing. And I think that's what set her apart as a kid, was that she wasn't taught to act.
She wasn't trying. Yeah, she was just doing it. I guess you coached her since she was so little, but it wasn't even coaching. It was just a...
Right, because once you kind of tell somebody, all right, this is how you do it. This is the right way. This is the wrong way. This is the stance. This is you hold your hand. The anxiety.
You're all in your head.
Am I going to make my coach happy? Like, all that starts happening. Yeah. And so when you just break it down to like, you're really angry with me and want me to pay for what, or you're heartbroken in the corner. Like, just let it out, then we're playing make believe, which is funny because my older daughter heard, like, I was trying to get her to do something and she had to like be curled up in the corner sobbing. And that's hard for a kid. So I was like, what would you do if our puppy got hit by a car? And she was like, you are awful. I hate you. Don't ever talk to me again. I spend my whole day trying to imagine happy thoughts, and here you are making me cry. That's sick and twisted. And like, she runs out of the room. And then the little one, I'm like, that's a really good point. But that's what I've always enjoyed.
You have to do that, though.
Yeah. And I, like my younger one, she loved Bridge to Terabithia. Like, she would watch these things, and the older one's like, that is weird. Like, that is sad. Why are you so sad? Why are you enjoying something that makes you cry? But I have always been like that. Like, I love a good tearjerker, and it's cathartic, and it, I don't know. But my youngest was like, I'll do it. And then she did it and was all into it. And so I was like, this one might have something.
And she started booking jobs young too. What, 2 or 3?
Well, we did some commercials when she was young, but her first like dramatic role that she had to actually,
like audition for,
like recreate a realistic moment. I think she was 5.
Okay.
And then 6 when she had her first like notable credit, with, like on IMDb, like, that's okay, here we go. So she was 8 when she did Big Little Lies, which was the home run, Yeah. And at that point, then she got enough attention that people were investing in her. Like, where's she going now? Like, how can we strike while the iron's hot? And I think we played our cards right. We got a good lawyer who knew a lot. And so some people, I think, don't know that about acting. And of course, this is at a level that's past me, like I'm happy with being on the call sheet that's on the higher end numbers,
Don't sell yourself short though. You've got a good resume too.
Well, thank you.
And but you guys just worked on a film together recently too, right?
We did. We played the same character, 30 years apart. And I never imagined that. Like, I always pictured, I'll be your mom in something, and to be the same character, like, that was really cool. Yeah. And there were some amazing people on that show. Cloris Leachman, I've admired her for most of my life, and she was everything that I wanted her to be, because when she was in her younger days, she was beautiful, and she was a comedian. So I was always following women who were pretty and funny at the same time, and she was awesome. And she's still at I think she was 92 at the time. She asked the little girls that were in the movie, like, do you know how old I am? And they're like, yes, ma'am. We saw on IMDb you're 92. She said, that's right. I could drop dead any minute. And they were like, oh, dear. But her sense of humor just was still there, and she would just light up a room when she'd come in. I mean, she had to have somebody kind of help her, but she's still... I feel like I see myself doing that, like Betty White, like people that are still acting, and like you don't ever like outgrow that industry. Like there's a role for anybody.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, you haven't stopped acting. You're still full steam ahead, right?
I mean, I'm always trying, but when Darby books something, I usually have to go with her and have that time with her. And I try to kind of break into the city that she's in and try to get some auditions, but it's been hard, especially with Canada, because we've been in Canada for a couple of projects for Christmas Chronicles.
Oh yeah.
1 and 2, and 2 comes out in very soon, like the day before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be on Netflix.
The first one's such a good movie too.
It's so good, and the second one I think's so much better. It had a much bigger budget. It the set was incredible. So imagine like a Harry Potter kind of vibe.
Oh wow.
With the adventure and the grandiose kind of like reactions. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
yeah, I feel like Darby is like a modern day Drew Barrymore.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
That career forming, but she's got a huge advantage because she has you and Clark, and you guys are great parents, and she has a solid foundation. It seems like so. You know, like a lot of these child actors, they have so many issues.
Right.
But Darby's such a cool person. I've only met her a few times, but you can tell that she's different. You know, like she's very mature. She's like an old soul.
Yes, and it's interesting that you say that because for both of my kids, they're very different, and I see this as a career path for Darby because she can handle it. But if these opportunities had come from my older daughter, you know, I don't think she would be able to do it. Like, not that she's not talented or whatever. She's an amazing basketball player. Like, but she just has that personality of a more like structured environment that is more controlled and knowing exactly what's around every corner. And that's where she thrives. Where Darby can kind of go with the flow and fill in the blanks and figure things out. And if someone was to put her in a situation that might, like, as a kid, when you're like, okay, stranger danger, she's gonna like turn and say, like, I got to get out of here. Like, where's my mom?
Yeah.
Where like my older one's a little bit like, ooh, what's going on over there? You know, and she's always, as a little girl, like, well, why not? Like, that's not allowed. That's against the rule. You know, that will hurt you. Well, how bad will it hurt? Should I? And when you know that kind of about your kid, like, I'm glad that she wasn't interested in pursuing this career because it would be hard for a kid who is given opportunity and freedom and money. And you're like, I don't have to think about that right now, but I'm going to cry if I do. Like, in 5 years, she is an adult and she will have access to things. And that's kind of a scary thought. Like, I need to start thinking about, like, how you help a kid manage going from being like the kid of people with middle class income to then hopefully at that time she's going to have a good chunk of change.
Oh, I'm sure.
And how do you prepare her to then be wise with it and not be everybody's best friend? And because she does have that need to please, and I mean, not to a fault, I think, but she loves her friends and she loves to like entertain and have them over and like, can't we just get this and do that? And those are the ones that you see like nosedive into bankruptcy.
Do you have does she have any type of foundation like for business or any of those? Are you guys doing any of that?
Yes,
because you guys are going to be on the lookout. You're going to have financial advisors come out the woodwork as she gets older. You're going to have all these people that want to manage her money.
We do have a financial advisor, and she, you know, she's incorporated and has a, you know, like her business, and you know, and with SAG.
The caveat I was going to say is watch out for the financial advisors.
Yeah.
So, because my thought is that you should educate her to a point that she knows enough to hold people accountable, including her advisors. Because, and Dave Ramsey's a big proponent of this. I don't agree with a lot of what Dave Ramsey says, but this makes a lot of sense. She can't just blindly give somebody money and expect them to do it and not hold them accountable. If it's like with my children, I try to teach them enough, and I'm very business minded, very much financials, very much like what's a cap rate, what's a return on investment, what are these things, and holding somebody accountable, and I teach that to them. But I would encourage you to do that so that she has something.
Well,
maybe
I will
put
be
her
calling you because this is not, I'm the
Yeah.
opposite. I'm the dreamer and the artist and the, let's all just have fun. And
We know we talked before the episode started. We were talking about friends, and as you get older, your friend circle gets smaller.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of that is when you're younger, you're a lot more open, and I think you haven't been burned a lot.
Right.
So your guard is down a little more. So, but as I've gotten older, I'm a lot more cautious with who I let in my circle because as you become more successful, people start to want to get part of what you have.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And it's hard to, sometimes it's difficult to tell what someone's motives are. Like, does this person really want to be my friend, or they want what I have?
Right.
Do they want a benefit of
They
being
want
my
to get
friend?
invited
And
on
that's
the trip.
that's what you'll have to watch out for is,
Yeah.
what are people's intentions? What are their motives? Why do they want to hang out with her? Is it because they think she's a really cool person, they love her as who she is, or they want to benefit from being associated with her?
Right.
Yeah.
And I have already at her young age heard her say things like, well, they were my friends since we were in preschool. Like,
Yeah.
and she values that and
Yeah,
she
it's big.
recognizes
It's good.
that. Yeah. But she hasn't had, I don't think we're at that point yet where
How old is she?
She's only 13. But
13th? I don't know. I was telling
Yeah.
people I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 13. Not at 13. I was saying that, though. I'd say you got to find some type of, start getting her interested on some level, just some exposure to, because she's generating wealth. So if acting's the way she generates wealth, she needs to figure out how to manage or be a steward of wealth.
right.
Or at minimum, know enough about it to hold other people accountable. And at 13, you're not diving way in, but there's some type of general principles you start to learn, and that way,
Right.
as she comes of age, she's got some type of understanding that she's generated a lot of wealth. Now her job is not to kind of mess it up,
Right.
not to muck it up.
And also, so she's 13, but she's not a normal 13-year-old. Like her experience as a 13-year-old is so vastly different from most people's. She does have a really successful business at 13.
That's awesome.
So she has to, and she's very intelligent too. So she, she needs to learn how to manage her business and run that business and learn about the dangers of other people trying to manipulate her or take advantage of her because she's not going to have a normal childhood, and there is no normal childhood, but
Right.
but she's not going to have a typical childhood like most kids would have. And
It does help that we're in North Carolina, so she sees
Yes.
a difference between what things are like and what's acceptable in North Carolina and what's acceptable when she's working or in LA, and like she's totally game for like a little bit of attention when she gets seen in Atlanta,
sure.
like in the airport or in LA, and but at home, if somebody recognizes her or something, it's weird. Like she's like, okay,
it's going to get weirder.
because what she usually gets around here is like, were you in my gymnastics class, or did I teach you?
It's early on.
They recognize her, but they're not sure.
And they can't
from
put their
where.
finger on
Yeah.
it. And then she's like, well, do you like, do you have HBO? Or do you have Netflix? And then she's like, did you watch? And then they're like, you're kidding. Or somebody immediately recognizes her and says, you look exactly like that little girl that plays Reese Witherspoon's daughter on Big Little Lies. And then we just giggle. Sometimes she's like, really? I don't think my mom will let me watch that. And then we walk on. But if
That's
she's
funny.
in a good mood or something, she'll say like, would you believe it that it is me, that I actually live in, they'll say like, well, what are you doing here? And that's another thing about business. People assume that you have to live in LA.
Right.
Or Atlanta now.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think it would help if I lived in Atlanta. But like I said before, like we're in two different ball games here. You know, when people want to work with Darby, like they make it happen. You know, and if she auditions, she gets feedback in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I just like poured my heart out and left it in this studio, and I'll never hear anything. But that was one heck of a moment, you know.
Yeah.
Like I just have to chalk it up to like I'm growing as an actor. Every single audition is for the future bookings. You know,
And I don't even think about it. I do an audition, and usually I've forgotten about it.
Yes.
In a day.
Yeah, me too. And then I put her on tape, and immediately, like I send it, my phone rings. Oh, that was brilliant. Oh, great. And
But
I'm
they're
like,
asking for her though, right? Like they're reaching out to her, and they've already have an idea that they want her for the role, or
Some things,
or a
like-
couple people that are top, the top
right.
possibilities. For the role.
Sometimes she'll get things ahead of time, and then like a month later, I'll see that other people are auditioning for it, and so sometimes that'll happen, but sometimes it's just like she's just like the rest of us, like going in and, you know, having the pre-reads and stuff. Like she daydreams about the day when she can just go straight to booking, and I tell her that that's not a healthy mindset, because
Right.
the growth is in the audition process, and it helps to get a little nervous and want something.
Yeah.
And I've worked on a project before that was just, you know, hey, I want you to play this role, and we'll have a table where we'll talk about it. And when I show up like that, and I've already got the role, it's like, okay, I realize I haven't done the homework on the level that I would have when I was fighting for it. So when you are auditioning, you've already taken a chunk of the best part of your role and, created a three-dimensional human being, not just this little like paper doll on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You've worked your stuff out, you've fleshed it all out, and you've poured your heart into it. And so sometimes it stunts your growth if you just are like straight to, so I don't ever want her to get that kind of treatment too soon. I want her to learn. And really, she's at that age where I need to start figuring out how to teach her the craft of acting, because her peers are going to classes and working and honing their craft. And I have still been playing this like, oh, let's just have fun and let's make it, something that we do together and enjoyable. And the competition's going to get tight now. It's not a cute little kid. This is like, now we're, you're a real person. Like, that you've got, people are going to ask you in interviews, like, what's your process? And, we haven't really gone into a lot of things. Like, I tell her things, but I don't use the words that sound like I'm trying to educate her.
Oh, yeah.
I make it sound very childish and playful, and now she's getting older. I don't
maybe
want her
you're
to
describing the new teaching method that needs to be used,
maybe. But then you don't want to sound condescending and like just immature. Like, I want her to be able to use her big words and, and describe her method. Like, she has a method, but she doesn't know how to articulate that. Like, I know what it is. It's different than mine.
Well, it's very ambiguous anyway. The whole craft is, it seems like there's a certain structure that we all follow, no matter what we call it. Mm-hmm. We all have to make choices and have a point of view and that sort of thing. But we all have different personalities, and we all approach those things a little differently.
Right. And if you've ever studied with more than one actor, coach, you'll find that different coaches teach different methods, and there's not a right or wrong. It's which one brings out the best performance
what works for you as an actor.
Yeah. So a lot of times I just pull from different people and try different things. But I now have kind of my rhythm, and Darby doesn't, like, without me having to teach her what I'm doing, I'll just really, like, in her presence, plop down with all my stuff and be like, I'm going to highlight my cues right now, because that'll help, like, instead of highlighting my actual lines. And then I'm going to write all this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put all my objectives on here. And like I'm just like saying what I'm doing, and she's kind of like
Picking up on it.
I'm hoping the antenna's moving. So when a kid comes over for me to coach, she is listening, but she's listening like, oh, what's that kid doing? You know?
Yeah.
And so I've heard her say things that I'm like, you were listening to my little coaching session. So I think she's learning it secondhand.
Oh,
but
yeah.
she's that kind of kid. Like it has to be her idea. She's a little headstrong.
I have a friend of mine. He's a really good actor, and he's doing some big projects, and he's never had an acting class in his life. He just has his own method that he uses, and it works really well.
His instincts are
And
right.
he got
good.
nominated for an Emmy
That's incredible.
last year. Yeah,
Good for him.
yeah.
Maybe
so
he needs to write a book.
maybe.
Speaking of those, that's Green Lights, Matthew McConaughey's book.
Oh yeah.
I just heard most of it on a trip to Atlanta, the Audible, and like I want to buy the book as a reference because there's a lot of things I want to go back and see. Like read the words, the alliteration. It's really profound. It's so interesting because it's got humor. You'll cry. You'll get inspired. It's all the things that you want out of. And I admire him. Like I wouldn't say like I was obsessed. Like I'm a major fan. But like I totally dug him. Like I'm like, oh, he's awesome. I want to hear what he has to say. I'd love to hear what his life is like, and I'd rather hear him tell his story than to read his story. But the way that it's written, he has these little little vignettes where it'll be like a poem, and it's something that he maybe wrote when he was 10.
McConaugheyisms.
Yes.
Now, is it him on the Audible? Is it actually him
It's
speaking?
actually him.
That's awesome.
And
That's
so it's just brilliant. And he has that magical voice anyway. And it's got the rhythm and everything that, you know, he's a great storyteller. But then when he's got these things that he's pulled, apparently he was writing and journaling like his whole life. Like he could have been a writer. And so he used to get into writing bumper stickers. And so then he'd have like there'd be a little break and it's just the bumper sticker. So I want to have the hard copy so I can go back and find those things. And then he'll like yell prescribed. And it's like a prescription for you to go and do this. Like this is his advice, you know? And so those are what makes it unique from any other memoir. And it's not like sappy and it's not, it is entertaining. It is as good as like having some music cranked on your road trip.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know Colin.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Colin. He actually mentioned that to me. He read the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you need to get him the Audible for Christmas.
I don't read those types of books, but with his, I was going to make an exception.
Well, I don't like to read the memoirs. I like to hear the memoirs, and then I'll read.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think with Matthew McConaughey, I'd want to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've listened to a lot.
I'm sure he's going to say it in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've listened to a lot of the actors' biographies and things,
Oh, okay.
and they're always better when you hear it in their voice than reading
Sure.
it. You know.
You mentioned something a few minutes ago about how people think that they have to, or even when you were talking about at a younger age getting into acting, it was not as digital, you know. So you had to have physical copies of your headshots, and you had to go physically meet with people, and go do audition. All your auditions were in person.
Right.
But now it's all digital, so it's so much easier as an actor, and you don't have to live in L.A. or Atlanta or New York. You know, you can tape your auditions, and then if you have to go there for a callback or something, you can make the trip then. But it just seems so much simpler now. The world seems so much smaller, so people don't have to move to these big markets, which I think is, like you said, it's good for Darby, so she can be in not that she doesn't have to be in that crazy environment,
Right.
to be a top level actor. But I am curious, have you guys considered moving to Atlanta? Atlanta still has a similar feel to North Carolina.
Right. And we haven't, because we have so many family members in North Carolina and it's home. It would be wise for me at my level to move there, but it would not make any difference for Darby, I don't think. And I want her to be where her friends are, like, and to uproot my 15-year-old who's established in her school with basketball and everything. Like, we're not there yet. It would they'd have to make it like, it would have to be a company like is supporting this move and financing it.
Yeah,
I think
if I were young, I would move to Atlanta. If I were young and acting, but at my age, I'm 40. You know, I have my wife, and our families live here.
Right.
We have a 4-year-old daughter who needs to be
Gorgeous
around the
girl.
grandparents and stuff. So
Yeah.
she's beautiful.
Yeah,
But,
it's like too late. Yeah.
but I
for-
don't think you have to though now because, like I said, you can. All auditions are taped anyway.
Right. Yeah, I don't think you have to. I think it does help to be a local actor and be like telling the truth that you're local to Atlanta, which I still always
You're
try
not
to.
that far from Atlanta. It's like 3 hours.
Right. I can get there. So
This
it's
guy drives
fine.
3 hours every day just to come to work.
Yeah. So, but
True.
I will say,
I
like,
hear people go, "Oh, it's a commute." I'm like, "You don't even talk."
yeah, that's a significant commute.
Yeah. And I still beat most people here.
But Lake Norman is worth it.
Oh
I
yeah,
will tell you.
and I won't bore you with the whole story, but I'll tell you, I kept my promise to my wife and put her back on the lake. I lost the first house there, and long story short, I made my way back, and so that's
for
why it's
you.
part of me keeping my promise. I try to, if I make a commitment to do something, even if I have to pay for it dearly, I try to keep my commitment. So
Bless you.
yeah. So,
I grew up across the street from Lake Norman, and it was, like always as kids, my brother and I were just like, oh, if we could only be on the lake. And then my mom's like, well, we're rich in love, and we were close enough. We had good friends that actually down your road, my brother camped out on the shore of that lake.
Oh yeah.
Lots of stories, funny stories of them getting in trouble and doing things. Because
Oh, yeah.
that was when it wasn't like the lake.
Right,
it was, It was just the lake. We're
Yeah.
gonna go hunting and fishing and mudding and four-wheeling, and we're gonna ski and tube and play in the lake. And now it does sometimes have like that, like, oh, you live at the lake, And I'm like, well, no, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's a lot more developed now too.
yeah, it's more developed and has that like little posh feel. And
I'm curious, and it's a curse I have, but I look at other major developed lakes in certain other states and the price points on them. And to give an example, like there are houses on Lake Norman, let's say that's not my house specifically, but let's say a $4 million house.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the price per square foot and the way it ranks, and then you compare it to another state's lake that's a little bit more developed and further along in the process that Lake Norman's going down. And that same home, same square footage, similar view, everything is $14 million.
Wow.
And so it makes me wonder. Everybody thinks the lake prices, and I'll tell you here, the last few months they've went through the roof. It's absolutely ridiculous. We get a lot of people from New York that have bought homes sight unseen, and the market. There are houses that are selling that are never even hitting the market. There's land that was $600,000 for half an acre in a cove in January that just sold for $1 million.
wow.
And people are buying it sight unseen, predominantly out of New York, but northern states. We've had some people from California, but a lot from New York have come down and bought. But it makes me wonder. Everybody says, oh, the prices in the lake are too high. And I do think the real estate market in general is inflated and fat. And the next, 6 to 18 months, I think there's a lot of people going to get crushed in real estate. However, there's an asterisk. I almost wonder if our lake is going to do what some of these other major states, that's the largest lake in North Carolina, has more coastline than the entire coast of North Carolina and South Carolina as far as the beach. So Lake Norman has more coastline than both combined.
Wow.
So it's more opportunities for real estate, right?
Yeah.
And so you start thinking about that and you go, there's all the recipes you have. It's a suburb of Charlotte. Charlotte is obviously, I think, for several years been one of the top 5 growing states in the country, or cities in the country. I think last year was number 2 in the country.
Wow.
I think you're going to see, again, we'll see with all the COVID moves going on and the crash and everything going on. I still think Charlotte will be a top 3, top 4 city for growth this year and next year in the entire country. So I think that lake may get even more expensive. So it's going to be interesting to see. But our house, since we bought it, and this number's arbitrary. It only matters when you sell it, and I don't plan on selling it. I think our house has went up 25% in value since I bought it a year ago. I bought it June. I closed July. I believe it was June 17th of 19. So just a little over a year and 25%.
25%. Wow.
And
Yeah.
there's no. It's crazy. But anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah. But
So.
it is interesting how you'll you'll drive through like an amazing community and then get a little bit past it, and then you'll see the houses that have been there since the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's all I need right there.
Well, you got to hurry and buy
Just
those
that-
up because you know what they're doing.
We'll tear them down.
They're
I
buying
know.
them and mowing them over.
Well, there's in our neighborhood. So I live in a lake neighborhood, but we're not on the lake. So there's a house that like was beautiful, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect house, and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna tear that down and build a bigger, better. I was like, y'all are awesome. Like that's good for y'all.
My neighbor, I've only met just this Sunday actually, just paid $2.4 million for their home, and
Leveled it.
yeah, they leveled it.
Wow.
So they bought it, and the day they closed, they leveled it.
Whoa.
So they paid $2.4 million for the lot. If you want to be technical,
Yeah,
right?
they got a lot of money.
Yeah.
I feel a strong desire to live at the lake in that
Well,
location.
they moved from New York. Well, you got to think.
Yeah.
He had a $5 million basically apartment in Manhattan,
Wow.
right? So, like, it's just the cost of living is so
Yeah.
much less here. For
True,
him,
yeah.
he went from a couple thousand square foot in a condo in Manhattan to a lakefront lot, and he's going to build a 9,000 square foot house
He's
for
like,
the same money.
Yeah.
So I guess it's all relative, and that's what I'm wondering is going to drive the prices up. And on that lake, you've got a lot of that taking place. Mm-hmm. So who knows? It's going to be interesting.
Something I think is kind of interesting. Y'all are talking about places to live and then traveling and commuting and stuff like that. I can't help but think about things like the advent of the Hyperloop, what
yeah.
that's going to do about where people live. You could essentially live in New York and work in LA or something like that. Maybe not that extreme, but
That's a good point.
That's
that
true,
kind of
yeah.
thing. You could live in the middle of the country for like not much of anything, and then like work in somewhere else, or live wherever you want,
When I was doing some of the stuff on the Hyperloop, it just came out. What are they saying? Like 400 miles an hour, 500 miles, like
400 to 600.
Okay, y'all are gonna have to fill me in. I live under a rock.
This is Elon's
Hyperloop.
company,
yeah,
right? The boring company.
Elon's
Elon.
got one,
Okay.
and then there's
The guy with the planes.
another billionaire.
Virgin.
Virgin. Yeah.
Virgin. Yeah, what's his?
Yeah.
No,
So we're talking
What's his name?
Airline.
No,
Like-
these are underground.
Sir Richard Branson.
Yes.
Yes.
So they're working on building underground tunnels
Wow.
to do these, I guess, direct connections from major cities.
Yeah.
And Elon's the one that came up with the idea several years ago. He
Yeah.
started this company called the Boring Company, and it was kind of a joke because
Yeah.
it takes so long to bore a tunnel. I mean, it's painfully slow.
Wow.
It's like I think it takes like a minute a day. I mean, an inch a day or something. But maybe not that slow, but it's really slow. But the thing about a tunnel, the way they're doing them is that they're it's like a vacuum tube, like almost I think like the bank uses, like for
Right. Yeah.
to send your
That's
little-
like
little-
Jetson mindset
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, so
wow.
you would get to one of the stations and you board this it is a pod, I guess, and they just keep shooting these pods through this tunnel every few seconds or a few minutes, and you can go up to like 400 miles an hour potentially, theoretically,
Yeah.
and eventually all the cities will be connected by these things.
Yeah, so they're talking about commute times, and I don't remember. I'm going to butcher it, but they were saying Charlotte to New York in like 37 minutes, something like that. So like,
That's incredible.
Yeah.
so and it's not, it's really interesting. You should look into it, but that may solve the, so if you can go to New York in 37 minutes, how fast is Charlotte to Atlanta?
It's very
Right.
safe too.
Yeah.
Because they don't they're not affected by earthquakes and stuff. For some reason, underground you're really safe from elements and earthquakes. And
The claustrophobia that is like, and I'm not claustrophobic, but the thought of it right now of me being in
A
one of
tube.
the-
Underground, yeah. I don't know. Do you fly?
I do, and I fly.
I got to tell you, I feel the same thing. But then again, I go, and we've got a partner that's a pilot, and and I go, I'd much rather be underground. I think.
me too. Yeah, I'd really do that. Blast me through that tube.
Just to add a little bit of info, as far as the boring machines, they can go 35 feet a day.
35
Okay.
feet a day. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not as painful, but
Yeah.
pretty slow.
And that just doesn't sound like a whole lot. Like
doesn't.
35
Not,
feet is,
yeah.
is what, here to that other wall in there? Like,
Yeah.
And that's
and what does that run a day to cost, I wonder? That's what I
Delayed
wonder.
gratification,
Oh, it is, man. It's
Sure,
all
it's
about
expensive.
that. What is,
one thing about the taping process I think is interesting because it does kind of stunt the actor's growth. I feel like there's something so valuable about being able to go into a room and do your thing in front of live people and having the nerves and that energy of, because when it's just me and, you know, my kid or whatever, and we're just kind of like hanging out and here we go, we're sitting up doing this, you lose a lot of that excitement, the positive nervous energy of like winning them over with my beautiful personality, you know, and things like that are missing, because I can say like that's one thing for our family like we have going for us, and some people like they don't. They're like, oh, this is good. They won't see how awkward I am, you know. And I get it. That's like it helps because we mess up a take, we do it again. You go in person, you might get 2 or 3 takes, and then nice to meet you, thanks for coming in, see you later. And it might not be your best take, but we as actors, I feel like, need to learn to get to the place where when we show up, we can produce our best work in 1 to 2 takes, so that we just don't get lazy. And that's what's happened. I can see in my, like, especially through COVID and stuff. It's like, you know, with my friends, even, it's like we've helped each other out. When you're paying for something, like for somebody to put you on tape, I think you do tend to prepare and put forth that effort because you've invested in it. But when, you know, I have friends that have to tape and I have to tape, like, okay, let's just get together, and then we're chatting and we're eating, and then we're like, oh, we should get to work. It's like, do you know your line? No, I haven't. And then the next thing you know, it's like, we really needed to get this on tape today, but we're kind of rushing and we haven't given it the preparation that it deserves, and then your tape is not as good as if you had just taken the time to prepare alone, and then you show up and you drive to your audition and you have that 30 minutes of like alone time in the car, getting your mind right. And like so much of acting, well, and I'm sure it's with all industries, I just don't know anything about anything except acting, is how you talk to yourself and and how you prepare mentally, and that's valuable. And without that, and when you're in your house and your dogs are acting crazy and you have a sibling that's screaming, like, it just can take you out. And that's not going to help. That's not in your favor. So I do hope that one day we can get back into a healthy balance, because there are times when it really is convenient. But like with COVID now, I'm afraid everybody's just going to go into like, you know what, we figured out how to function remotely, like school's just going to stay shut down, or this job will always just be from home now. And that's great and convenient, but then it's not, you know. So it's like anything that too much of something is always not good, you know. Or
I share that fear a little bit because not going to go down the political path, but I'll tell you, there's recent talk, and I think it comes out Friday, the governor of North Carolina kind of backing things back again and going backwards, like with and I don't know enough about the specific. So I wonder, and there's rumors going through that they're talking about through the end of next year. So now we're not even talking about. Now they're talking about making decisions in months or quarters, and not making adjustments even when they see results for extended periods of time afterwards, to keep that from happening. I just think it's getting crazy, but I wonder about the same thing. So it's supposed to go into effect this Friday. I guess we'll see.
I remember when everything started and people were talking about the coronavirus and not going to school. I'm like, you know what? It's a good thing I'm in the entertainment industry, because the entertainment industry is just always there. I mean, people are at war, and you've got stars going overseas to cheer up the troops. Like, actors just keep on going. And then it was shocking that, like, literally everything stopped.
It all shut down,
Well, I think a big part of that is because the entertainment industry, this is going to be a controversial statement,
do it,
is out of California and Atlanta, and you've got, I think it affected those industries more. I think the people in those industries felt more strongly about it than other industries. Because I can tell you a bunch of other industries that don't give two flips.
And
they're being forced to be closed by government entities, whatever state, local level, and they don't care about it. Whereas I think in the
I think they care about it. I think you can't take away people's livelihoods.
I think that's that's a better way to put it. Like, if you got to put, so there are people that put a gun on to go to work. Why can't you put a mask on to go to work?
Right.
Right? Like it makes no sense to me. And I'm one of those people. I don't think the government has a right to tell me to not do anything. I have the right to provide for my family, right? And I don't think
that's
anybody.
essential.
It's an essential thing. So I disagree with that. Now, do I need to take measures to be safe, to protect myself or protect others? I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But I'm not okay with somebody else telling me I can't do something. I don't like that part of it. But
And it's one of those things that, like, everybody has their own bottom line. You know, like, I live with my mother-in-law. And so, like, for us, it's a little bit different. Like, I'm not worried as much about my husband or my kids and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like we have to make the decisions for our family.
Yeah.
And we're going to probably be a little more cautious than maybe our neighbors or whatever. Or we're going to think twice about it's that cost benefit. And if we were broke, I'm probably going to think twice about the choices that I'm making now. You know what I mean? And we don't have cookie cutter existence. So it is very hard to lay a blanket.
I think what you're describing is that everybody has the right to make choices based on their circumstances in life, right?
Right. And we have to trust that everybody's smart enough to do that, you know. But
well, and if they're not, this is natural selection. If you're not smart enough to not, drink a toxic, poisonous fluid and can't read the warning label on the back, then natural selection kicks in and you die. It's a morbid thing, but like, don't shoot yourself in the head. But because other people do that doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to carry a gun, right? Like, the gun doesn't shoot itself; it requires somebody else to operate it. So, like, I get into a problem where I have other people telling me what I can and can't do. I don't like that per se. Now, I got to make decisions, and I may make the wrong ones, and my family or myself may pay for those bad decisions, and then I got to be able to deal with the consequences. But I just don't like other people dictating what I can do. That's where I get in. But I feel like Hollywood is filled with people that have the opinion that, and I think that's why it affected the film industry so, was that they agree and they didn't want anybody working. I felt like their whole thing was stay at home, and I'm not disagreeing with that.
And also, that's a lucrative industry that could probably afford to
shut down for a while.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people were like, I never would have made this decision for myself, but this is a good decision. And I can afford to take a break and enjoy like, not everybody has that luxury.
But 85+% of the population live paycheck to paycheck in this country.
Yeah.
And those people can't afford to take a break. I'm all for people wearing masks in public and preventing, the spread of this virus or whatever. But because I firmly believe that my rights end where yours begin. So I believe that I should take every effort to protect your rights and protect you from me. But at the same time, I feel like my right to work and to produce for my family is essential, and everyone's right to work and produce for their family is essential. I can't. I don't see how you can say, well, this business is essential, but this one's not, because they're all doing the same thing. They're all providing for their families. They're paying their bills. They're keeping society going, and society's fragile. We've seen that this year. We definitely don't want to destroy society. So I think there's a way that you can keep moving forward and be safe while you do it. I mean, Japan has had great success doing just that. They never shut down their society. It's a cultural thing in Japan. If you get sick or you have a cold or something, you wear a mask to prevent spreading it to other people out of courtesy. But they've only had a little over 1,000 deaths in Japan, and they haven't shut their economy down. And that's because they all take action to keep each other safe, but they also realize that it's important to not stop the economy.
Right.
Yeah.
So who knows? But
it is picking back up.
Yeah,
yes.
I think
the entertainment industry. I mean,
it's just.
I wonder, are they about to turn it back off though?
I have no idea.
That's what I'm getting at. You had said, hey, you hope it goes back to normal. I was saying, I don't know if it is, because it looks like there are signaling. There's 7 state governors that have signaled that they're going to go backwards.
Yeah, wow.
So California being one, New York, North Carolina.
Yeah, just locally,
Arizona.
of the projects that are going on. Like there's one that has successfully been like kind of cranking along without an outbreak or anything.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that's been shut down because of everybody got cut. But we've been able to go over, go to LA and have finish up Clifford. That was Darby's project she did last summer.
Is that Clifford 2, I guess?
No, it's just Clifford. She needed to redo a scene, and so it was just a 1 day shoot, and the precautions were through, to the nth degree, which would be very hard to sustain, I think, for like a 3-month shoot. But it was exciting to see that. Okay, we're moving along, but you're right. I don't know when it's going to get pulled back.
I just received a news notification this morning that said that I think Pfizer has a really promising.
They do.
I saw that.
Vaccine.
And maybe that
tests will be over. They'll be ready. It looks like they're still testing it, so it's not available for the public. But I think it's going to be available probably beginning of next year.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think everybody's kind of right here. I think no one knows what to do, so it's hard to know in that position as governor, do I put the brakes on or not? Because you see places that don't.
Yeah.
And people are dropping like crazy.
I don't know the right answer.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think that's the thing is we gotta not be so hard on each other and understand every situation is different, and trusting people to make the best decision for their families. And
that's the part. What you just said is where I agree and disagree. Trusting people to make the best decision for their family, right? The people should make the best decision for their family, not the government.
Well, the government, I think their role is to say you have to wear masks in public,
right,
to prevent the spread of this thing. Because if everyone wears a mask, at least we're, if not preventing the spread of it, highly reducing it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think the government has the right to say that you have to shut all these businesses down. I don't think it's constitutional. I think there's been a lot of court cases that have been won on a constitutional basis saying that's not constitutional.
Yeah.
And that's very important. I don't think these governors ever had the power to do some of the stuff they're doing.
Right. It's unprecedented, so it's hard to tell. And I get...
Well, now it's like you can't have more than 10 people at your Thanksgiving dinner.
I just worry when people start to... when you have someone in a certain position and they feel like they have a certain amount of power. I believe that when people have too much power, they get corrupted.
Right.
And that scares me.
Right. And just to play devil's advocate, though, we'll say that when you are a person that's in power, on the very low level that I was a teacher, I'm the teacher, I'm in charge of 30 kids, and I want all of these kids to make a really good choice.
Yep.
So how do I tell them these are our options, and how do I make the best decision? I'm always going to err on the side of caution, because I've got to think about what's best for the A students and what's best for the F students. And it's really hard when you play it safe, the star people and the losers or whatever. Not that I'd call a kid a loser, but for my analogy.
Yeah. They're there though.
It's very hard to take care of both sides.
Yeah. How do you please everybody? Yeah, you're right.
And it's so hard. So I do not envy being in that position.
Yeah.
And I get that we don't have a guidebook, and
there's a big difference between a state and a classroom, though. A classroom is not a democracy. That's a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
State is a free society.
Yeah.
And I did preface with, I have very little to compare this to, because obviously I'm not.
I like your analogy, though, because what I would say one of the problems with public schools is they teach to the median, or at best case scenario, or to the lowest end of the class, because they can't teach to the top student, because the median and the person at the bottom of the class will never learn.
Exactly.
So that most teachers are teaching from the worst to the median, and everybody else is left. And that people like me, when I was going through school, it was zero effort. I could give that much. I was 12th in my class, tied for first, with no effort, and highly destructive, and had too much free time on my hands. But that's the problem with public schools.
Right.
So, but exactly what you're experiencing. But there's not a one-size-fits-all solution, because we're a diverse economy, right?
Exactly. And we're diverse people. It's just so hard.
It is.
I
like the new Montessori stuff that's going on, and there's some things, but who knows? And I think the governor, by taking that position, put himself in a position to be judged. No matter what he does, I'd say 90% of the time, half the people are going to be disappointed, and the other half are going to love it.
Well, we're clearly a divided state.
Yeah.
Country.
I just don't
more
like when
than
he makes a
ever.
decision and the justification is he's worried about the health of the general population, right? And I'm not just picking on him. Any governor,
Right. Yeah.
any person in power making a decision, and you make that, but you don't apply that unilaterally across all businesses. You apply it just to the ones you want to against, right? So, and a good example of this would be the ABC stores have never closed one day in this state.
Wow.
Right, so COVID's important and it's contagious unless you're in an ABC store, and we're going to keep the same hours and operate, right? And it's owned by the state. It's a government entity. It's not that's not owned by individuals in North Carolina. North Carolina, it's owned by the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, and also the grocery stores are open, so everyone's going to the same places anyway.
Yeah.
You know, we're all going to be exposed to each other regardless.
Yeah, gas stations. I can still buy lottery tickets. I can buy cigarettes. I can buy alcohol and go to the grocery store. You know, but don't be grouping at dinner, though. Don't go to Thanksgiving dinner because that's where COVID thrives, right? It was like the rules at the restaurant. Like, if you're sitting down, you don't have to wear a mask. But if you're walking, you need a mask on.
Yeah.
Because when you're sitting, you're safe from COVID. It's proven. But I don't know. It's easy to pick on after the fact.
Yeah, because I feel like at that time, when they're saying that, they're teaching to they're dumbing things
This is
down.
what
I have to say this, or else someone will drink
I agree.
the hand sanitizer.
You know, I think overall, he's navigating it the best way he sees fit. And I mean, that's fine. I disagree with some things. Overall, I support him overall as far as the general, what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I disagree with some of the things, but it's the same thing though. But my real fear is when, and what's normal, I don't know, but when can you do an in-person audition? You know, that was the point you had said, think it's going back. I'm just worried. I like that we're going forward. I'm worried we're going to start going backwards. And I don't know that people's mental states can take that.
I am so concerned with young people.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to make it more, but there's a lot of negative things taking place as well. Yeah, it's through the roof.
Suicide rate, like I cannot even.
We're going to see the numbers next year, but I've heard, and it's rumors, but I've heard that this will be the highest suicide year in the history of the United States recorded.
Well, just watching the news seems to already point to that, and that's devastating.
Yep. So it's like I'm just ready for it. I mean, everybody feels a little off. It's just like
oh yeah, it's horrible.
So, and that's not one person's fault. It's not the governor's fault. It's not a president's fault. It's not it's just it is where we are, and I would love to get out of it.
Amen. Wonk, wonk,
yeah.
Who knew I was going to come here and leave crying?
No. Yeah. No, but you were talking earlier about mental state and how you didn't know if it applied to other things, but how your mental state and your the audition process and acting, how it meant the world. I think that you're right. We talk about that all the time. No one beats you like you beat yourself, and your mental state has everything to do with it.
That's true.
I lost everything I had. I rebuilt, but I'll tell you, when I play it back in a good mental state, I can tell you that while I couldn't control the things that were happening to me, I could control how I handled them and how I reacted to them, and I reacted poorly. That's putting it very lightly. I handled my life at that time very poorly. I made a lot of bad decisions, and those lapses in good judgment and good mental state had terrible negative consequences. So had I stayed positive, and we do that, man, we're big in positivity. We're big in self-growth. It's not about comparing me to him or comparing one staff member to another. It's each person's growth, their individual growth, and are they getting better as an individual? Are they the best them today?
Right.
And I think that's key for everything, for success. Because if your mental state falters, no matter what you're doing, you have days where you don't want to show up. And if you don't get yourself psyched up to put forth, you're probably gonna have a bad day, right?
And this year's been tough. It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Some days you wake up and you just feel anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's hard for creativity too. It's hard to be creative when you're stressed.
Last night I was I'll be straight. I'm trying to be a positive guy. 99% of the time you meet me, I'm positive. I love solving problems. I was having a rough day. I've been having a rough couple of days. Yesterday I was having a rough day. I saw a picture, kind of brightened me up a little bit. You had painted. And you had painted forever. And you post on Instagram, Facebook, and I was just like, it was like as a brief moment.
Attaboy. Yeah, good. This is.
Yeah, it just was like for a moment, it kind of took me away from whatever mental.
Right.
What's a good word for cluckery? Whatever mental cluckery I was dealing with.
I'm curious, what made you pick up the paintbrush?
Did you see it?
No, I haven't. I'll go back and look.
Just, as an artist, you're always trying to create and you're always inspired, and I think.
But not always. That's the thing. It's
I don't know. You can't say that because you haven't painted in how many years?
Like, that's the second time I've painted in 15 years.
So you
Wow.
saying? Yeah.
And
So, like, I do feel like early on, I rolled up my sleeves and started doing things that I've always been interested in doing. And,
Yeah.
like, I had learned how to sew just enough to complete my requirements in college
Cool.
for a costuming class. And so I got the sewing machine that Santa had brought the kids
yeah,
and started sewing, and I got really excited, and then that was great. But then it kind of peters out, and I really did take a like, I feel like I've been the lowest at times this year than I've been in a very long time, and I think it is the trapped feeling. Like, I'm a people person. I need the energy of others. So even the auditioning, when I was saying how when you go to the audition, your preparation and your mindset prepares you for that moment in the room. Well, when you leave, you're running on a adrenaline high that prepares you for your life.
Yeah.
So I'm a better mom. I'm a better spouse when I come home after auditioning. Like, 2 people in a room saw me with a full
excited.
face of makeup and my hair fixed, but I walk in like, I nailed it. Or even if I said, like, well, didn't get that one, let me tell you how bad it was. And then I'm having a conversation with somebody,
Yeah.
But without that, I feel like
You're still doing what you love, though.
Yeah.
the adrenaline rush is gone. And so every day being that Groundhog Day was
Yeah.
just
Well, for me, it's like
Terrible.
since I got back into acting, and even before that, I've always been creative. Even in business, I really enjoy, any kind of any aspect of design work and stuff like that. And I do a lot of that in business, even in consulting. I'll design logos for people and labels and that kind of stuff.
He helped
Posters.
a big part of that right there.
that looks
Yeah.
great.
I designed the logo on that.
Yeah.
Not the. I had an artist in LA do the artwork, but the Creative Businessmen logo itself, I designed that. But so I'm always trying to create, and fuel that creative side.
Mm-hmm.
And during COVID, I had just started doing some stand up. I guess probably early last year, and I was doing these open mics to improve my comedic writing because I do a lot of writing,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed it, so I just kept doing it, and I'm still doing it, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very helpful with writing. So even during the quarantine, I didn't feel like writing because I was you kind of feel depressed and anxious about not knowing where things are going or what's going to
Yeah.
happen to society. But I just made myself do it. I would just sit down and write, usually every night.
You're one of the most disciplined people I've ever met in my life. And I love that. Like, I have to draw from, like, okay, what would Neil do? Because I was, this just gives me an excuse to binge watch everything I haven't had time to watch since 1982. Like, I can look up old movies, show my kids the ones that I was obsessed with as a child. Like, I feel like I just turned into a couch potato.
Yeah.
I had such a better, like you said, when you're busy, I made sure that my day started with a run, or I
Yeah,
would go to
that's
the
good.
gym when it was cold. And like, when COVID hit, it's like, well, I'll just wait until later. And
Yeah.
then a day would go by, and I'm like, I'm wearing the same pajamas on day 3. Like, this is
Yeah.
bad.
I stopped working out. I've worked out religiously since I was like, I started working out when I was a kid, really, but I've worked out in a gym since I was 18 and never really missed anything. I mean, when I lost my leg, I missed like a month.
Yeah.
And
I remember seeing him posting, and he was back in the gym and
on crutches.
on crutches. Yeah, and then I think you were attempting. I remember the first time
I was
you did
working
like
out at my house actually in 2 weeks.
I think you were trying to do you were doing a squat online or something. You had and
Oh, yeah.
You remember that or something? And I was
Yeah.
like, you have got to be kidding me! Like, he almost died, lost a leg. He's in the gym, and I'm like, what in the hell is my excuse?
Where do you attribute that perseverance, that optimism that you like so naturally bestow? Like, you.
I have no idea. I mean, my parents are both hardworking people, but they're not real ambitious. I've just always been really ambitious since I was a kid. I think I'm bipolar, and I just stay in a manic state.
Yeah, every once in a while you fall for
Yeah, I'll drop down occasionally to
Yeah.
a baseline,
yeah.
and then I hate being there,
Yeah.
and I'll just
Yeah.
force myself to do something. And with the creative stuff, I feel like I always have to feed that. Like sometimes it's music. I'll play the guitar. Or I'm not really great at it, but I've done it for a long time. So something Like maybe I'll play the guitar, I'll bang on the drums a little bit, or I'll draw.
You have to listen to green lights. Like,
I just have to be doing something. Mostly what I do is writing or business related stuff. Something I try to do things that are more productive
yeah.
for, my career and now it's basically outside of business. My main focus is, acting, comedy. So acting, writing, comedy. I did really enjoy doing this painting.
He did a good job. I was impressed.
I'll probably keep painting.
Yeah, I was impressed.
I'll go check it out. I definitely want to come see you do stand-up.
I think, too, when he was talking about, you said, what does he do? I think, and I'll throw myself in this, too, but I think what happens, too, is we've been dealing with adversity for a long time. Like, let's say that you put your heart and soul into one thing that you're passionate about. Let's say a business, and you're doing that for 4 or 5 or 6 years, and then you meet some adversity that you have to overcome, right? And that can be devastating, and it can take a toll on your business.
Yeah.
Some people with that one thing will go under, right? And some people, they power through it. Well, we have that happen every day.
Wow.
Literally, because we've got so many things. But over the years, we've had it happen over and over and over again.
Yeah, business is always a scary place.
Yeah, so I think
it's always a risk.
I think that we're used to that, and I think you become conditioned to whether you had a good day or a bad day or a difficult day or a challenging day, or we may have. We just sent off checks to attorneys. You've always got something going on. You've got tenants, commercial tenants that you're evicting. You got properties you're buying. You got if you're a business owner, at some point you're going to get sued, whether you're right or not. We've got people on camera intentionally falling out of chairs. It's so obvious it'll make you laugh, right? But then they turn around and sue you, right? It was staged, but you still have to, as a business, you have to defend it, right? So we've always got these things, right? This negative potential input. And you just got to get up and go, right? So it comes back to that mental state. But I agree. Sometimes I like to work 100 hours a week. So in my 4 months, I do what most people do in a year. That's our thing. And you had said
I can't keep up with this guy.
No, I think it's the other way around.
No.
I think it's the other way around.
No,
but yeah.
Well, that's cool. You guys inspire each other, hold each other accountable.
Well, last night I was having a bad day yesterday, and I worked. I just trudged through it. I was just like, I'm gonna have a bad day, and that's fine. I'm having a rough day. I couldn't get my mental state right, and I just kept working. I just kept getting things done. So I was like, I'm gonna get to the end of the day, and at least I've been productive.
Yeah.
And I got home last night, and I was just like, and then I saw him painting, and I was like,
good for you.
I should have painted. I don't paint, first of all. Mine would have been stick figures, but I should have done some stick figures. I think I'd have felt better.
Well, during the shutdown, when I stopped working out, I just started hiking. He was hiking with me.
Yeah,
a lot.
I did a little bit.
We'd go
yeah.
hike like 3 or 4 days a week.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important to find like-minded people to hold you accountable, to be the balance. That's what Pat Dortch has always been to me in my acting world. Like there's
Pat's
times
awesome,
when I'm like, all right, dude, I'm on the ledge, and he's like, scoot over because I'm already there. Like, I don't think we've ever had that moment, but we've talked about what's going to happen when that, who do we, but it is good to have somebody in your field that you can,
I agree.
count on, that you trust too, because there's also the wrong people.
I agree.
That you have to avoid like the plague. Because
we deal with that, and this was talking about with your daughter. Like, you'll see.
Yeah, Darby, as sweet as she is and as awesome as she is, someone's going to try to sue her one day.
Yeah, it's just
part of it.
You have to listen to McConaughey's Green Lights just for his stories about his dad was like that. Like, who are we going to sue this week?
See,
wow.
Oh my gosh, the stories are great. He has a great story about.
Was his dad an attorney or a business person? Now I'm definitely gonna have to read it. Yeah.
His dad was just a dude trying to make a buck.
Oh, okay.
There are people out there like that.
They've got great stories.
Some people are driven, and sometimes it's just not the most productive way.
Yeah.
It's like, can you refocus that energy?
Right. Yeah.
So, but we're gonna have to hike some more.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. The weather's nice now too. Well, not today, but in general, it's cooling off.
It has been nice.
So, one thing I wanted to ask you is, when you were a kid, when did you get inspired to become an actress? Is it okay to say actress now, or do we say actor?
Yeah, actress. I'm fine. It's fine.
Okay.
That's cool. Yeah, I really.
Do you know the answer to that though? I'm curious. Do we just say actor now, or is actor still a word?
Actress is still a word.
Okay.
I typically do just say actor. I don't know why.
Yeah, I do a lot.
Yeah. I'm not picky about it.
I don't know why it's a different word. It should be the same word.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Businessmen, businesswomen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I guess we throw that in there. So I think just all my life I felt like I wanted to do a job that was fun, that didn't feel like work. And so I was always drawn to television and the movies. And that's kind of what I don't remember ever making a decision. That's what I want to do. When I went to college, I knew I had to, figure out how am I going to endure 4 years of school. Like I wasn't,
Yeah.
I did fine, but I didn't love school. It didn't come easy for me. Like I had to work really hard for my A and B's, like the occasional A and mostly B's. But I was a good student. I just would prefer not to have to do anything that I don't have to do. I want it to be fun.
Yeah.
And so
Just typical with entrepreneurs and artists.
Right. And so the first step with getting into the BFA was to audition. So I was like, if I audition and I get in, then I'm going to get an acting degree. And if I don't, then I thought maybe I would do journalism. And I know myself now, I'm like, I am not into politics. Like it makes my stomach hurt. I hate controversy and debate. I'm just like, let's all give each other hugs, please. Like, oh, to each his own. Like, oh.
Yeah.
And so that was not going to be the career for me. But I liked my journalism teacher in high school, and I was editor of the school newspaper. So to me, I guess it would probably translate now to like I would have written articles about the entertainment industry in People magazine. Like maybe that. I don't know. But now I think so. My internship was in casting, and I love casting, but I have strong feelings about. I hope I don't offend anyone. I have strong feelings about casting directors or casting associates being actors as well. So when I go into an audition and the person that puts me on tape is the person like 4 weeks later that I see on my TV, it's like,
oh, wow. Yeah.
it just kind of, it hurts your heart. It's like, well, dang, I just have to trust that people are doing the right thing. So I won't ever pursue being a casting person.
As long as you're an actor.
As long as I'm an actor.
Yeah.
And remember, I'm on the Cloris Leachman, Betty White plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll always be an actor.
I was going to tell you, some people win by default, just by not giving up.
Right.
There's a statistic I used to tell my brother, and it's definitely not valid anymore, but one of my brothers is awesome at baseball, travel league and all those other things. And he would say, everybody would say, oh, you're never going to make it to Major League Baseball. And I was like, man, I ignore them. That's why they suck in life.
Yeah.
And I used other words, but that's basically what I was saying. And my whole thought process here is everybody has that mentality. And so you want to get kids, at first sports is something to get your children active and out of the house and just see what they're interested in, maybe to meet friends, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point it switches, right? And it becomes, can you make a career out of this? And people start to make decisions about whether they continue to pursue it based on whether the people around them think that they can make it or that they themselves think that they can make it. And I think that's the wrong way to do it.
Right.
Because if you look at each level, especially hit like high school and then college playing, the pool of people that drop out grows and grows and grows and grows. Mm-hmm. I think you win by default a lot of times. Like literally, if you just outwork and you're consistent and you stick to it.
I agree.
Not being negative, but Betty White, the people in certain age, they will age out one way or another in every group, right? Child actors age out. They're replaced by new child actors, right? Infants are only infants for so long, right? Like you have to go through these phases, and as everybody progresses through phases, it creates opportunity for the next one.
Right.
And who's the future Betty White, right? Like I'm not saying, it's kind of a joke, but think about it, like as people age out and everything, it creates an opportunity. So your opportunity will continue to evolve over the next 30, 40, 50 years, right? It will not be the same today as it will be in 10 years.
Well, like didn't Morgan Freeman get a really late start? And like Ann Dowd.
And killed it.
Yes.
Still killing it.
Ann Dowd is one of the she was in
Liam Neeson.
Oh, okay.
Julia Child.
Yeah.
I love Ann Dowd. She was kind of, I don't know if you know, she's in The Leftovers. She's in Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, Handmaid's Tale. That's right.
And she was great in the movie with there was a movie that she did that it's kind of a small cast, and she was a restaurant worker. Clark, do you know it? Anyway, she got her start later in life, and I think she just seems like one of the most kind, humble people. And I do think that the most talented people in the world are only revealed in their shower. Like
Yeah.
their mirror is the only audience that they'll
Yeah.
ever have. So I'll never be so like arrogant that to think that, oh, I'm the best. I booked this job and I was the best for the role. You know, it doesn't work that way. Like there's plenty of people that could do this, but do they have all the like things that lead up to showing up and being in the right place at the right time? So
Are they willing to make the sacrifice, right?
Right,
Like
'cause it is a
you walked away
sacrifice.
from your job, right?
yeah.
That you
Yeah.
took a risk
Right,
and you
yeah.
sacrificed something, peace of mind. You potentially, there's people who walk away from their job and they get divorced,
Right.
right? Spouses didn't know about it. It wasn't a group decision, and
Yeah, and
it
thank
ends
goodness
things.
I have a support system
Yeah.
that you know, I would have never failed to the point of failure.
Right.
It would
yeah.
just be like, ooh,
Yeah.
this is a stumbling, you know, let's call on our many, many lifelines, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so I think there is that, you know, that knowledge of knowing like, hey, I'm not going to actually, you know, drown here. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I won't take that for granted. So I know some people don't, but I do think some people think that they can't. And if they really tried, if they put their back against the wall, like they said, and there was no other option, they'd surprise themselves and they'd rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
I agree
So,
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with technology and stuff, the way it's advancing so quickly, I think a lot of people are going to be displaced.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, in society, we'll have to figure out a new way to cover people's needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in the future, there will be a lot more opportunity for people to pursue these passions they have and
Right.
to do more of what they want to do.
And I believe we can survive on a lot less money than we think we can. Like it's hard to wrap your brain around it because we want what we see and we want what we see other people enjoying and driving and doing. And if we can kind of put blinders on that and say, all right, I just really need to meet my needs so that I can then long term, I'll get there, but it's going to be a slower path. But sometimes we don't want to just like,
Delayed gratification.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and I agree with that. I think the challenge is everybody sees someone where they are, and Sam Walton used to say every overnight success is 20 years in the making. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's
So,
no such,
so
yeah.
you know, it's like
It feels like it was overnight.
yeah, everybody, the Walton family. Well, he was broke for 20 years, right? Like he didn't, and then even then, it took 40 more years after that for it to be what it is today, right? So it's like, but everybody felt like because all that they didn't notice him until he was successful, right? But I agree. I would tell you though too, I don't make decisions anymore based on money. In the beginning, there was, yes, you can survive on less. Well, I ate ramen noodles. I think they were 17 cents a pack when I was buying them, 11 cents a pack, something like that. But not healthy, obviously. But we didn't hang pictures on the walls in the first houses that I bought because I didn't want to have to repair the holes.
Right.
So I would buy a house, we would fix it, and then I would rent that one out and I'd move to the next one. And I moved my wife 9 times in 10 years.
Wow.
Right? So we were living way below our means. We'd live in one room in the house. We didn't buy anything. We didn't furnish it. I
You
didn't
didn't
have
collect a bunch of clutter.
No, nothing, right? And until 2009, I didn't have internet in the house, right? We didn't have cable. We didn't have DirecTV. I went a decade. I still don't have cable. I haven't had a home phone in 10 years. But we didn't hang pictures because I didn't want to fix the nail holes, right? So for a long time, I did things that nobody else would do, and everybody was going to the beach and doing all
That's
these
the
trips.
Dave Ramsey
Yeah,
concept, right?
yeah, well,
live like no
some
one else
version,
now,
yeah.
so you can live
Exactly.
like something later.
Yeah. And but you do that over a long period of time, and no one paid attention. Most people thought I was crazy. A lot of people would question to my wife, like, "Why are you staying with him? Like, this is ridiculous, right?" Like, because I wasn't being normal.
Yeah.
But then when the compound effect of that over a long period of time took effect, and then I still like I got 6 pairs of the exact same pants. I got 6 pairs of this shirt. I've got 2 or 3 things I have. I don't like to make decisions. Let's wear the same thing every day.
You go naked on Sunday?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
If I can, I can pull it off. But there are things where I don't spend money. But then there's things like the lake house where I have finally, and I lived really well below my means, right? And then when I was younger, I went the other way, too far.
Yeah.
Lost everything, start over. I'll tell you,
But
rule number
you
1.
learned a lesson the hard way.
The hard way, right?
But the lesson got learned.
Yeah, the lesson is, and I read Warren Buffett till I was blue in the face, but the lesson, Warren Buffett's number 1 rule is don't lose money. I didn't pay attention,
Yeah.
and now I understand the rule.
Right.
So
Loss is part of the process.
loss is part of the
Right.
process. But and then boom, to rebuild, what did I do? I had to go back to what I was doing that got me there to begin with,
Right,
which
'cause
was
it worked.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were saying, I think we all can live off less. I agree with that. We can live off virtually nothing. You can survive off very little. But I don't know that you get trapped in the decision of you got to make a temporary decision to survive. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do to survive? But then long term, what do you do to make you happy? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think you got to, the people get trapped in that, what do I do to survive? And they spend 40 years doing that. I don't like that at all. Mm-hmm. I think that's a terrible idea. And I think there was a statistic that came out that something like 80% of people were unhappy with the current career they were in.
Oh,
Yes,
I would
over
believe
80,
that.
Yeah. So, like, that makes no sense. Now, do it temporarily. I had to do things I didn't like temporarily when I lost everything to start over. But I think as quickly as possible, you got to be looking for the thing that you do like.
Right.
And then that's how I can work as much as I work, because I enjoy it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And you too. I mean, you've already figured out that you guys can survive off of less. Why are you still working? Why are you still motivated? Why are you still passionate about acting? Why are you encouraging and nourishing that in your children?
Right.
Because it's not about the money. The money is
Right.
a
Side effect,
right?
Yeah.
It's a plus one. It's icing on the cake.
Right.
Like, you would do it for free, I bet.
Yeah.
So
You have.
yeah. As
I
I've
have
heard for a lot of actors, a lot of them work
Yeah.
for free for a long time.
Weird industry. Yeah.
It is.
So, and some people look at actors and that are really some people would say overly paid, but they don't look at all the years they put in to get to that point.
Exactly. That big paycheck, that national commercial that required nothing, you're still breaking even as a low income person in society,
Yeah.
So I believe they earn it, you know.
No, they do.
Oh, yeah.
And then once you have a name, your identity, you no longer are, you have no privacy, and
right.
and people make assumptions of who you are.
That's
and
right.
I really struggle with that. I don't like for people to just pigeonhole and say oh, well, this is who you are. And it's easy for people to just say, oh, he's this, he's, well, so-and-so, that's who he's like, and I'm like,
Everybody generalizes.
Yeah.
right. And I just hate that so much, because especially actors, there are days, like you said, you feel bipolar, which I don't think you're bipolar, but I get what you're saying. You have bipolar tendencies of who you are on a certain day. And I think that's what makes people a gifted actor, because the job of acting is emulating life and reality and recreating what we actually do every day. And people aren't cookie cutters. They are complex, and they're onions. Shrek told us.
When I have auditions, I don't do any phone calls or anything for an hour before the audition.
It's good.
And I always go to if I tape an audition, there's a studio in Greensboro. It's actually a really nice studio here, and two of the guys who run it, or two of the guys I know who run it, I think there's three guys that actually run it, but two of the guys are really good actors. They have incredible.
What are their names?
It's Drew Matthews and what's wrong with me? Lee. What's Lee's last name?
That's all right. It's not who I was thinking of. You
Lee
tell me.
Spencer.
Lee Spencer. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, Drew and Lee are really good actors. If you look up their resumes, super impressive.
Yeah.
They have almost 50 credits each.
And I think Drew's got some students too that have done really well recently.
Yeah, he's got some students that have done very well.
Outer
pretty
Banks
big names.
and still, is it Sweet Magnolia? Maybe has he got that one, or is that
Several.
several? Yeah. So he's having some success for sure.
But my point of that was that I'll go there to take my auditions because I still get to feel that what you were talking about, that excitement, that nervousness, that positive energy.
Yeah.
Because I know that when I put up an audition on tape with those guys, I'm with very good actors, and there's a high standard. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that I go there and I give it my all, and
you meet your
and
your teammate. What do they say? You're strong as your weakest link.
Right. Yeah. So it's a very professional setting, and I know these guys are really good actors, so I don't want to let them down. You know?
Exactly.
And I go in and I'll knock out the audition in a couple takes. And it's a lot like an in-person audition.
Right.
You know.
I just realized you've worked with people I know, people I just worked with, like Jerry Keys and Angela and stuff. I just shot for
Yeah.
Jerry like
Oh, that's
a while
awesome.
ago. Yeah, I was like, I think, okay. And I know you from other stuff too, but I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, stuff that I work on.
Yeah, and
neat.
I've known Jerry for a long time.
Yeah.
He's just a sweetheart.
Right on. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
great. He's fun to work with.
He
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I love how there are people, and the good thing about being in North Carolina is we do have a kind of small,
Yeah.
like, community.
Yeah.
And
I'm noticing that. Like, we have people on, and I'm like, wow, you're starting to see how the spider web comes together.
Right.
They all know each other.
And
Yeah.
I just feel like the support, like Jerry Keys and his wife will send us a card if we're on the road somewhere in Canada, and like send something like a care package for my daughter when she was little, especially like, and those kind of things, like other actors, like knowing him that you're somewhere away from your family and remembering you and doing those things. Like, I just feel like that makes, that shows how special like being in North Carolina is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's why I wouldn't just jump and go to
Yeah.
LA unless someone really made it worthwhile.
Right, yeah.
Because I don't think that culture is like that out there.
Right,
And I can't
it's
speak on it because I haven't lived there. But I have to be very protective of who like we let into our world when we're kind
Yeah.
of in this competition, which I hate. I'm like, acting is not a competitive sport.
Right. Yeah.
You
Well, I don't
know,
think
like-
there's any reason to ever move to LA.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say I would.
Just the income tax is going to be what 16%
Oh,
now.
right.
So it's,
Like, there's
it's
no
not
way
worth
we
it.
could change
I think
our
a lot of
lifestyle.
people are moving out of LA.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
especially, yeah. But just leaving this community
Right, yeah.
would be really hard because there has been so much support. Like, I feel like I could call anybody and they already know me. You know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that old friend thing.
That's the old phrase. I was gonna say, yeah,
you
you're
know?
right.
Yeah.
And I don't have to explain anything, and I don't have to say like, "Oh, I've got an angle" or whatever. Because there were times when you're on a set and people aren't sure. Like, I have those bipolar tendencies too. So when I'm excited, I'm a lot. Like
Yeah.
and I've had a mom be like, "What are you after? What's your angle?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, I just need to make friends so bad. I'm so desperate. Like, it's just me and my 8-year-old, and I need a friend." And she's looking at me like, "That's weird." And she's like, "You should." And then we became friends, and she's like, "You really need to dial it down and protect yourself because you're going to attract some crazies."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Thank you. Say
They're-
that again. I'm writing."
They're not used to that Carolina hospitality. Is what
Right.
it is.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, we do business in 11 states, all over the place, right? I don't think you need to. I mean, Atlanta maybe, but you can travel so quickly now.
Yeah,
Right.
such a small world. Even
It's-
if
yeah.
a lot of actors that are working on series and stuff, they still have their home. Like they'll live
Right.
in the city they're filming during the, even if it's for several seasons, but they
Right.
still have home that
Yeah.
they go back to, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unusual.
Yeah. And we do that. We'll have big projects. We'll you can do Airbnb or VRBO or just a whatever, and you're there while you're all in for a period of time, whether that be 6 weeks or 3
Right.
months or whatever it is, and you just you that way it cuts some of the commute out, but then you're a quick ride away from home. So I mean, I think you guys can. I think you're good.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what's going on with all these people moving to the East Coast. I think it's going to be really interesting. Tyler Perry, I saw this thing about, I'm not sure if it's vetted fully, but that he was a billionaire. And if he's not, he will be, because he created
Yeah.
this thing on the East Coast. And I mean, it's just, I think,
Yeah.
especially with everything going on right now, it's set him up to be, whatever he's worth right now, it's going to be worth 10 times that in a few years.
He's got a great rags to riches story.
Does he? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty impressive. He seems to have that mentality like you guys have, like,
That,
I know you've seen his studio.
I
It-
haven't. I've actually
really?
never worked there.
He
wish
bought an entire closed
I've
military
seen-
base and
I've seen
converted
pictures.
I've been there for a
on the
couple of
internet,
auditions.
but I've never gotten to go.
I've never worked on his projects, but I had a couple of auditions there, and it's massive.
That's awesome.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
I
a-
can't remember the name of the fort, but he bought an entire military base and converted it.
That's cool.
So,
It's a nice studio, yeah. Or it's a nice compound.
so
It's
I was reading after we talked about this on one of the other podcasts. I read up some of the offices, some of the military officers on base houses that they had. Like when they bought all the property, some of those houses are the houses that are in some of his shows. So obviously they
Oh.
turn them
Oh,
into.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So
that is
it's
cool.
really interesting. It's like, I wonder if you were in the military, if you ever look back and go watch any of his stuff and be like, we lived there, like
Right.
Sure,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
because most of those officers had wives and kids, and you know, and or husbands and kids, whatever the case. And, you know, they used to live in that home. So I think that'd be kind of neat.
It's neat, yeah.
So, but that was creative. Who would have thought about that?
I know.
You know, it's a creative solution.
That's right.
So-
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yep.
Well, Lacey, it's been a pleasure having you on. Do you want to tell everyone how they can follow you, and if you have any projects coming up that they need to keep an eye out for?
Yeah, sure. So on Instagram, I have my name's Lacy Camp on Instagram, and there's a link to the latest movie, the one you mentioned, where Darby and I play the same character. It's called When We Last Spoke, and there's a link in the bio for that. And Fear Street, which we filmed last summer, was supposed to come out. It wasn't summer. I don't know when it was supposed to come out in theaters.
During the normal days?
But so now I think it's going to come out this summer on Netflix.
Okay,
And
cool.
yeah, it's based on R.L. Stein's books. It was books for youth, but I think this is like rated R. So yeah, it was really cool.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, so it's like dual life. Like I'm playing two different characters, but in two different realms. Like one's in the 1600s, so I got to implement all the things that I learned in a theater background with having an accent and stage combat and period styles. I was in a corset and everything, and
Awesome.
worked with a dialect coach for an accent I didn't even know existed. So it was the
Nice.
like early American,
Like Puritan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and I was thinking, well, it would just be British, and they're like, no, it's not. It's a little tweak on the British and Boston kind
It's
of.
like the Witch.
Yes.
Movie Witch, yeah.
Yes, I watched that to try to get.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So that was exciting to kind of roll up my sleeves and put into use things I actually had, you know, dreamed of using, and
That's
it took
awesome.
20 years to get to that. You know,
That's awesome.
but that was a lot of fun. So like I pick up my daughter, who is not doing the Puritan things,
Yeah.
and I pick her up by her hair and like
Oh.
throw her out the house and yell at her and damn her to hell. So so I'm really excited about that.
Sounds fun.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's it for me, I think, coming out. And then Darby has a few things. So Christmas Chronicles 2 on Netflix the day before Thanksgiving, and then Dreamland is going to be in theaters. That's with Margot Robbie, and she filmed that a few years back. So it's really cool to see her, like as a little
At her age, that's a big difference,
like
right? Yeah.
8 or 9 years old again, and I'm like, oh, you know, I saw it when they finished it, but now I've seen the trailer for it, and it, you know, she's now 13 and she looks like a different human.
Yeah.
So it's kind of exciting. And then next summer she'll have Clifford come out, and that's going to be exciting. That's set to be in the theaters, so fingers crossed.
Awesome.
Very cool. Awesome.
It's a Paramount Pictures, and Paramount bought Dreamland, and so that's why Dreamland is now coming out. It was an independent film in New Mexico. So
Awesome.
yeah, I think that's it for right now.
Awesome.
Well, it's
Yeah.
great to see you again.
Thank you very
And-
much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. It's a
Good
pleasure having
catching
you on.
up.
Yeah,
Pleasure
absolutely.
meeting you.
All right.
And if you guys enjoyed the episode, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Lacy Camp on Instagram. Check out her IMDb. She is a very talented actress. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
All right.
Later,
Thanks.
guys.
Aw, you're awesome.